That means my turn now. Yeah. I don't know. For some reason, I thought maybe you were singing another one. Good morning, guys. You guys can have a seat. I just got one announcement this morning, and it is the bonfire that is going to be happening this coming Friday, the 3rd, at Doug and Sherry's house. That says for Doug, but it's at Doug and Sherry's house. If you need the address for it, talk with Sherry, talk with Doug. They'll give you the address. It's going to be at 6 until whatever time everybody decides to leave. So that's going to be Friday. Bring snacks, bring drinks, bring chairs. That's what I was told to say. So bring what you would like for a bonfire. If you got fun toys that you want to bring, you kiddos, or JD, if you want to bring some fun toys, you go ahead. Whatever you guys want to bring for it, you guys are welcome to bring. But yeah, we'll be there Friday at 6. All right, JD, come on up. JD's taking it today. So this morning, let's open our hearts and hear what God's got for us this morning. You want your little tray?
Huh? No. Oh, that. Got my bucket. Is this thing working? Where's the tray? Oh. No, that's all I need. No, I don't need it. I got this stool, and I can use that. Hey, guys. Good morning. So, I was thinking about, I like it that level. So, this is my conventional sermon. So, Rebecca told me a while back, they had taken the kids to like their first cinema, and I may get this not exactly right, but that's the way I tell stories. When you got 7 kids and all the grandkids, everybody's got a different story of the same event. So here's my story. So she's telling me that they went to the cinema. How was it? Oh, it was amazing. They saw, I don't know what. But it was the first time the kids had made, I think it was the first time they'd ever been in the big cinema. And it was a pretty overwhelming experience to the point, well, for example, Matt made many trips back and forth with popcorn and relief trips to give kids a little break because they were like, it's a cartoon or whatever, but they were like, oh, gosh, this is overwhelming. I mean, what's going to happen next? You know, like they're in tears. It's like very upsetting. And so I'm imagining Rebecca, telling them, and encouraging them that it's going to be fine. It'll all work out. And what was that show? Was it Superman? Incredible. So she says, don't worry. I mean, they're worried. She says, don't worry. Because he's going to save the day. And Eli says, what happened to the day? It was like everything else is going wrong. And now the day is going bad, And I just thought that was so funny because it was like, it's not unlike life, she knew something that the kids didn't know. And so she wasn't all tore up about what was happening because she knew something. And to me, I drew an immediate correlation to what it's like to live on this planet and know something. With respect to what kind of peace you can expect, what type of future expectation you can expect. In the middle of, the rain falls on the just and the unjust, in the middle of everything, if you know something, it changes everything, right? Rebecca's not all tore up. She's kind of enjoying the moment, because she knows something. And next time around, when they see it again, they maybe already have, I'm sure it wasn't near as traumatic because they know something, and they could enjoy the ride a lot more. We only get one, there's only one ticket for this ride. It's only one time. And I think what I wanted to communicate this morning was that knowing some things can help us with this ride and make it what I believe God wants the experience to be. I believe when we got saved and we entered into eternal life, that's not something that we get when we die. That's something that starts now. There's a quantity obviously, and a quality that I think starts now. So, so there's a story. That's that. This is a multifaceted thing. So there's a story I was going to read. This came from Max Lucado's book. He actually has a book, I think, just with this story in it. But this is a story that we read a long time ago, and I really like it. Wow, I really realized I couldn't see it either. Let me try this. I may just pick it up. Okay, maybe you've heard this, maybe not. I like this story because it tells me something. Okay, it's called the Wimmicks. The Wimmicks were small wooden people. Each of the wooden people were carved by a woodworker named Eli. His workshop sat on a hill overlooking their village. Every Wemmick was different. Some had big noses, others had large eyes. Some were tall and others were short. Some wore hats and others wore coats, but all were made by the same carver who lived in the village. By the same carver, and they all lived in the village. And all day, every day, the Wimmicks did the same thing. They gave each other stickers. Each Wemmick had a box of golden star stickers and a box of gray dot stickers. Up and down the streets, all over the city, people would be seen sticking stars or dots on one another. The pretty ones, those with smooth wood and fine paint, always got stars. But if the wood was rough or the paint chipped, the Wimmicks gave dots. The talented one got stars too. Some could lift big sticks high above their head or jump over tall boxes. Still others knew big words and could sing very pretty songs. Everyone gave them stars. Some Wimmicks had stars all over them. Every time they got a star, it made them feel so good that they did something else and got another star. Others, though, could do little, and they got dots. Punchinello was one of these. He tried to jump high like the others, but he always fell, and when he fell, the others would gather around and give him dots. Sometimes when he fell, it would scar his wood, so the people would give him more dots. He would try to explain why he fell and say something silly, and then Wimmicks would give him more dots. After a while, he had so many dots, he didn't even want to go outside. He was afraid he would do something dumb, such as forget his hat or step into the water, and some people would give him another dot. In fact, he had so many gray dots that some people would come up and give him one without any reason. He deserved lots of dots, the wooden people would agree with one another. He's not a good wooden person. After a while, Punchinello believed them. I'm not a good Wemmick, he would say. A few times he went outside and hung around the other Wimmicks who had got a lot of dots, and he felt better around them. One day he met a Wemmick who was unlike any he had ever met. She had no stars. She was just wooden, and she had no dots. Her name was Lucia. It wasn't that people didn't try to give her stickers, it's just that the stickers didn't stick. Some admired Lucia for having no dots, and they would run up and give her a star, but it would fall off. And she would look down, and some would look down on her for having no stars, and they would give her a dot, but it wouldn't stay either. That's the way I want to be. Well, that's the way I want it to be, thought that's right. Sorry about that. Regroup. That's the way I want to be, thought Punchinello. I don't want any more marks. So he asked the stickerless Wemmick how she did it. It's easy, Lucia replied. Every day I go see Eli. Eli? Yes, Eli, the wood carver. I sit in the wood shop with him. Why? Why don't you find out for yourself? Go up to the hill. He's there. And with that, the Wemmick with no marks turned and skipped away. But he won't want to see me, Punchinello cried out. But Lucia didn't hear him, so Punchinello went home. He sat near the window and watched the wooden people as they scurried around, giving each other stars and dots. It's not right, he muttered to himself, and he resolved to go see Eli. He walked up the narrow path to the top of the hill and stepped into the big shop. His wooden eyes widened at the size of everything. The stool was so tall, it was as tall as he was, and he had to stretch on his tiptoes to see the top of the wood bench. A hammer was as long as his arm. Punchinello swallowed hard. I'm not staying here. And he turned to leave, and then he heard his name. Punchinello, as would Carver's voice. Punchinello. The voice was deep and strong, like J.D. Woods. Punchinello stopped. Punchinello, it's good to see you. Come and let's have a look at you. Punchinello turned slowly and looked at the large, bearded craftsman. You know my name? The little Wemmick asked. Of course I do. I made you. Eli stopped. He stooped down and picked him up and set him on the bench. The maker spoke thoughtfully as he inspected the gray circles. Looks like you've been given some bad marks. I didn't mean to, Eli. I really tried hard. Oh, you don't have to defend yourself with me, child. I don't care what the other mimics think. You don't? No. And you shouldn't either. Who are they to give you stars or dots? They're mimics just like you. What they think doesn't matter, Punchinello. All that matters is what I think. And I think you're pretty special. Punchinello laughed. Me special? Why? I can't walk fast. I can't jump. My paint is peeling. Why do I matter to you? And Eli looked at Punchinello, put his hands on those small wooden shoulders, and spoke very slowly. Because you're mine. That's why you matter to me. Punchinello had never had anyone look at him like this, much less his maker, and he didn't know what to say. Every day I've been hoping that you'd come, Eli explained. Well, I came because I met someone who had no marks. I know. She told me about you. Why don't the stickers stay on her? Because she has decided that what I think is more important than what they think. The stickers only stick if you let them. What? The stickers only stick if they matter to you. The more you trust my love and the less you care about their stickers. Well, I'm not sure I understand. You will, but it will take time. You've got a lot of marks. For now, just come to see me every day and let me remind you of how much I care. Eli lifted Punchinello off the bench and set him on the ground. Remember, Eli said as the Wemmick walked out the door, you are special because I made you, and I don't make mistakes. Punchinello didn't stop, but in his heart he thought, I think he really means it. And when he did, a dot fell to the ground. Yay. That is a nice story. And it's a powerful story because it really speaks. Well, it speaks at lots of different levels. So we'll get to that. So Stephen and I were talking some weeks ago about these blow-up boats because I was getting ready to take this trip to the Upper Peninsula with Jimmy, and it was going to be on a lake, and even though we're going to be grouse hunting, we thought we might fish some too, so then I was looking for other alternatives instead of carrying my canoe. And so even though I really had no intention of getting a blow-up boat, that started the search, and I didn't realize what was out there. And my goodness, there's all sorts of stuff out there. So I watch YouTubes and the best blow-up boat and this kind of stuff, and some, they go from anywhere from like weigh 50 pounds for $50, and they, have a couple of oars to put a 35-horse Evinrude on it, and they weigh 250 pounds, but you can carry 6 people and go anywhere you want, So it was really kind of neat. So it was fun to watch the videos and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking to Steven about it, and I was saying, yeah, some of these boats are awesome. And so what came up was that some of these boats are great because they have extra accessories, including a patch kit. Steven's immediate remark was, I'm not interested in a boat that comes with a free patch kit. I want the boat that says, no patch kit included. You don't need you don't need a patch kit. And I thought, that's exactly right. But and of course, because where my mind tends to go, it went. Most people's experience with Christianity is, come to Jesus. It comes with a free patch kit. And that's what they call grace. Grace is like, come to Jesus, this says you are, but don't stay that way. And that's a nice sentiment, and I understand really what they mean by it at its root. But how it plays out, in my experience with most people, is they spend their entire life trying not to have to use their patch kit, but happy to have it when they have to have it. So they struggle to be a better person, a better Christian, but by golly, that habit gets in there again. But, and just when I'm getting really down about it, I got a patch kit for that. And I slap it on and I keep on going. And their life experience is really a bunch of patches that aren't really, anyway, it's an experiential thing. Their experience is that, their experience in what they call grace is that they now get to live. So when they do mess up, which they hope they don't have to, the goal is not to walk. Couldn't help when we were grouse hunting. Jimmy told us he was talking to the DNR guy, the Department of Natural Resources guy, and he said, "Well, a lot of guys, here's how you hunt these things. Jimmy already knows how to hunt them. You walk a lot with your dog. You walk a lot. But the local guys, they don't walk. They drive around their car along the back roads and they shoot them out of the car, because the local rule is, the goal is not to walk." So we even thought about getting a T-shirt. The goal is not to walk. So the goal is not to need grace. The goal is not to have to burden Jesus with your imperfections, but to get better, to get more whole. So anyway, I kind of disagree with the patch approach to Christianity, but I think it's a familiar approach. And so I'm bringing all this up because I thought of something the other day. It was kind of a little goofy analogy, but I thought in the natural realm, let's say like in the sea, like in the natural realm of fish and that kind of stuff, the bigger the fish you are, the small things are less consequential to you. It's like, for instance, the little tiny minnow, it likes those microbes or whatever. It's a filter feeder or whatever, so it eats those things. And the crab, he doesn't care about that, but he might want the little fish, or then the bigger fish wants the crab, and the bigger fish doesn't care about crabs or whatever. He wants that bigger fish. So the bigger you are, the more kind of like disrespectful or don't really care about the smaller things, right? That's the way it works in the big world, right? Unless in the fish world. I'm imagining this in different like scenarios. But I thought in Christianity, it seems like the bigger you are, then it's the small things that seem to. It's sort of like it's backwards. It's like, let's say you meet somebody that just got saved. Oh, I see you got saved. Yeah. I got a lot of problems. Don't worry about those problems. Oh yeah, man, but I'm on drugs. We can help you with that. Jesus will help you. So it's like you overlook their quote sin, right? It's not that you overlook it, but you realize God takes you just as you are. So don't worry about your big problems. But the longer you're in this group of Christians and the older you get, the bigger you get, then all of a sudden it's like, what, you've been a Christian for 10 years and you still smoke? You still got that cussing habit? You still do, you know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden the smaller things are the big things. That's a big deal. And it's like the knowing some things about what Christ really did can keep us off the slippery slope. I call it slippery slope of performance-based acceptance. And I don't mean just with each other, although I do mean with each other, but I also mean with God. It's a slippery slope because it's like in this world, I think there is some natural law. I mean, this is not new to most of you because most of you understand some natural law like gravity, things like that. And I think there are some natural laws, and I think are spoken of in the Bible, and I think that's why they're spoken of in a lot of other religious settings. For instance, I think the law of reaping and sowing and reaping, reap what you sow, you shall. I think it's a flat law. I think it's just like gravity. I think that's the way the world works. That's why I think other religious things have very common, whatever you call it, doctrine that fits that. You're like, that's not unique to Christianity because a lot of these are just natural laws. I think that, you lie and cheat. I think most religions will probably frown on that and tell you that's probably not best. It's not. It's just kind of like it's a thing. It's not because they're like, well, in that way we're like a Christian, like Christian religion. I think that there's some flat laws out there, and I don't know what I was saying about it, but anyway, that's about that. So, one of the things that I'm adamant about, or what I really want people to, tends to me to separate somebody who really has an understanding of the grace message and of what it is to be in Christ. Yes, most people understand Christ in me. Like, now Jesus lives in my heart. But to understand that, like Paul said, Christ who is my life, and experiencing that on a daily and deep level. It's a knowing that's deeper than, like with Rebecca in the story of the movie. She wasn't. It was so deep in her that there was no conscious effort to remind herself that this is just a story and that it's all going to work out. It's like that knowing is deeper than that. I don't know what level you call that. It's kind of like trying to describe why you love someone. It's like it's not looks, it's not personality. It's like I don't know what, right? So experiencing, at some level, experiencing this is both. It's both supernatural, because I believe that's part of it. It's not just a head thing. But it is also a head thing in that you have to know some things. That's why I think it's so important to delve into the Word, to get to find out what's God say. Because at the end of the day, who are you going to believe? You can believe your experience. You can believe the causal relationship. Because it is very difficult to live in this world, because causal relationship is a real thing. And most people, including me, I mean, I've been doing this a long time, as many of y'all have too, but it's very difficult to not try to draw conclusions between a bad event and whether or not you prayed that morning or messed up the day before or lost your temper, and make those connections. Because the law of sowing and reaping is a real law. And to somehow believe, and I believe it's important that we believe that when Jesus came, gravity still works, and a lot of these laws still work, but they don't work in the same way. The rules have changed, and he took the curse on himself. And there's a level there where we don't have to accept the causal relationship in that same way. We don't have to live like that. Which is crazy, because everything, and I believe the enemy has used this to help to encourage us to to believe that it matters that much. And that's why it's hard to cuddle up to Jesus when you just kind of blew it. You lose your temper, and now I don't feel all close to God. So I got to fix that. I got to put a patch on that. I need your grace, you know. And it's like God saying, man, that's not it. That's not what this relationship is about. You know, grace and grace offers a potential to live life on the planet. This is a big stretch for most of us. To live life on the planet, to live without self-protection. It's hard to live without self-protection, without feeling like I have to say no and qualify why, to say I'm doing this and this is why, to feel like the judgment of my non-Christian, Christians, mom, dad, everybody is on me, to just live from the heart and do what you believe is the right thing to do. It's a tough play, but that's the depth, that's the ripple effect, I believe, of experiencing what Christ really did relative to you, to us. I mean, that's what righteousness is to me. That's the difference. It's so deep. It's so core. It's like it is not something you put on. Not like I don't think Rebecca said I got to get my game face on because I got to convince the kids here that he saves the day. No, there's none of that going on because it's in her core. She knows. I mean, it's you know what I mean. It's not in her core. You get what I'm saying. In the same way. Okay. Jesus said one thing before he said a lot of stuff. But one of the things he said, the last thing he said in Matthew 28, he said, he didn't say, hey, by the way, I'm leaving, and I need y'all to get your act together. Try real hard. I'll send the Holy Spirit to help you, but here's the deal. He did say, hey, go into all the world, preach the gospel, but he also said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. That's like the last words. Like last words are important. There's a last word for you. Know this. I'm not leaving. I'll never forsake you. Part of what I keep coming back to, and everybody, the idea of Jesus, this is my work tarp. I'm bringing it out here for my next illustration. The idea of it's not a new idea, but people have been talking about, it's not religion, it's relationship. And I say that too, and it's not untrue. It's true. That's why it gets said a lot. But it's like that is it. I like the way it was illustrated in that book, The Cure, where he says most people's. Well, he didn't say it like this, but to recap what he says, most people kind of go through their Christian experience or even their non-Christian experience like this. Here I am here trying to live my life and I'd like to get close to God, but there is this mountain of sin between me and God. And I've got to fix that to get close to God. And at some level, I think that's most people's experience. At some level, at some time, they felt like, I've got to fix this because he already forgave me once, but then I did it, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, come on, I got to fix it to get close to God. But I really think that what God is saying is, no, I'm over here with you. I'll never leave or forsake you. We got all of eternity. Remember, eternity starts now. We've got all of eternity. Do you really think you're going to fix that good enough to get into heaven? Is that your game plan? Fix it all, and now I'm good enough? No, because everybody knows, oh, no, you can't get good enough. That's not it. Then what's the point? When the very last words were, I want to be with you. His very last words were, I'll never leave you. That's what it's about. Jesus is the prize. So I believe a more correct visual is, you're here looking at your junk. Jesus here looking at your junk saying, let's go. We'll fix as much as we can before you die. And then come be with me, and it doesn't matter. So if it doesn't matter then, why does it matter now? What's really important, right? So along with that is sort of my illustration here. It's the bucket illustration. So this came about, got a drill, got some drill bits, came prepared, I don't know about you. Assorted sizes of drill bits too. That'll become apparent why in a minute. How to do that. Anyway, so some time ago, I listened to a podcast or something, and I was talking to a wildlife biologist, and somebody came up to the wildlife biologist buddy, and he said, listen, I found out what's happening to all the pheasants. He said, I came across some an ant bed, fire ants, which are evasive, and they are eating the eggs of the pheasants. There they were. They eating a whole batch of them, 20 of them. So we got to take care of the fire ants because they're eating. They're the problem. That's why we don't have pheasants. Did I say pheasants or quail? Good. I'm gonna stay with pheasants. Works with quail too. Works with all wildlife. We'll use pheasants. I think that things talked about quail, but anyway. So pheasants. So the wildlife biologist said, well, you're not wrong. He said, you're not wrong. He said, well, let me put it this way. He said, let's say you had a bucket, and the bucket represents the entire pheasant population. There's the life of a pheasant. And let's drill a hole in the side of the bucket. And let's say fire ants. Good night. Need a different bit. That is now having an effect on the population. Not a huge effect, but definitely an effect, right? Well, let's say you have what? What? Yeah, but no. How about coyotes? Coyote. If I was a coyote, I'd go for that, right? So let's drill a hole down there, coyote, right? Or how about raccoons? Hardly ever, but occasionally an alligator. Definitely get it. Definitely get it. And the guy says, you could keep talking about all the things that are having an effect, and they do. That's real. But he said, let's drill a hole in the bottom of the bucket, and that right there is habitat. He said, it doesn't matter what you do up here. If you don't address that, it's game over for the pheasants. That's a wildlife biologist, illustration for pheasants, grouse, deer, everything. It's all about habitat. You can stop, you put don't hurt the deer signs on the side of the road, slow down for turtles, all that. But if you don't fix the habitat, it's game over, right? So I really love that illustration. I thought that was great. I told Jimmy, who's my wildlife biologist son, that story. And when I first started it, and I said, so this guy said it was ants. Jimmy going, oh, brother. Because he's heard this before, because he gets calls from people. People call up and say, I think I know what's happening to the grouse. You know what I mean? And it's like, he might say, you're not wrong. That is happening. But that's not. This is game over. All that stuff just has an influence. So I'm going to relate that to us as a Christian. Now, if you're using this illustration, which I think you can, go ahead, it's free. Use it for somebody if you want to lead them to Jesus. And they're all concerned about Oh my goodness, I smoke and I drink and I cuss and I've been married 7 times. I got 4 girls. I mean, who knows what their problem is? I'm on drugs, whatever. You say, how that doesn't matter? That doesn't matter. What matters is Jesus, because you got a hole in your bucket. And if you don't fix that, it's game over, man. You're going straight to hell. Do not pass go. I don't know how you might, hopefully you'll use that if you want to. But anyway, the point is that that's a great illustration. I mean, I like that because that really points it to what's important, right? Well, let's put it in this room with Christians. And what I think about that hole down there now is that hole represents somebody who does not understand righteousness, does not understand that they are not a sinner saved by grace anymore. They were a sinner, but they have been born again. This is not an intellectual thing. Well, now I understand that everything works out in the end. I was scared, but now I get it. It's way deeper than that. It's a supernatural experience. We cannot forget that. It's not about, well, do you understand grace? Do you get it? It's that God did something, and it's a new deal. It's a new game. And all of a sudden, all these things up here, they take on a different understanding because you really know that those stars and dots don't carry the impact they used to. They don't matter as much. They don't matter in the same way. Okay, I'm going to go back to my illustration. A lot of, I think in my experience, personally and with people, with Christianity, it seems like this. It seems like you come into church, you come into, say, the Christianity experience, and you're like, with the promise that Jesus loves you just as you are. And then it becomes pretty apparent over time. Doesn't take long for you to sense that that's not true for everybody else. We just assume you got better and quit doing the things that you're doing. And you yourself start taking on, like, the responsibility to do something different. And then we have the causal relationship, which we believe that and we start to experience, and that reinforces our belief that God's not as happy with us or as pleased with us when we're not doing as what he wants us to do. And we basically fall into, so religion, I believe, really wants to help with that. Basically, religion is just, and Christianity falls into this too, where it's just really about behavior modification. It's just about doing better and fixing that part. And I guess what I want to reinforce and what you to take away is that Jesus is saying, this is all that matters, that relationship with me. Who you are is what matters. Now, when you're experiencing that and you start believing that, here's what happens. And this is where it's a beautiful thing. Because when you start experiencing that, you're not faking it with somebody else that might be struggling with sin. You realize that isn't really where it's at anyway. It's not about getting fixed before you die. It's not about, now these things matter. Sin matters because it affects your quality of life. All religions know that. Everybody knows that. You're not saying it doesn't matter that you quit drugs. It's not healthy for you to keep lying and this kind of stuff. But that's not at all like this down here. And not only that, you're not up here, I got these sticky notes here. You're not up here going, oh gosh, man, what if John comes and visits our church and sees that? Cover that one up so he doesn't see that I've got that problem. Or I got this problem, I got to tape it up. I got a hole right there. I'm taping up best I can. It's like Jesus saying, and here's the thing, it's kind of funny. It's kind of like when you're starting to experience grace, one of the telltales that you're getting closer is when you're able to leave somebody else alone because you really believe. I mean, right now we want to believe, but let's say you really experientially are walking out a belief system that says the Holy Spirit is their teacher. Jesus lives in them. He is going to take care of it. And if he's not working on that, then you don't need to work on that. That you don't have, you don't have to bring it to their attention. By the way, how you doing on that? You think that's okay? Really? You feel comfortable with that? It's harder for us to let somebody else, like, what if Jesus says, I don't care about their homosexuality. I'm working on just a relationship with them. We'll get to that later. I don't care. What? He doesn't care? He doesn't care about their drugs? Yeah, he cares in that it's a quality of life. He cares about that. But this is what's important to him. He wants to, you know what I mean? It's about that relationship. And when you get that, it kind of gives you, and you understand that it's not something it's not a belief that I put on. It's a core understanding that there's been a supernatural change, that Jesus really is on the inside, and it really is going to do. He started something, he's going to finish it. He's, that person, you and them, you're his workmanship. Created in Christ Jesus. Before time ever started, he had in mind a plan. And anyway, you see what I'm trying to get at is that is understanding that allows you to live in grace. That's why grace isn't something, I'm going to give you grace. What that means is, I'm going to cut you some slack till you get your act together. Instead of, that's between you and Jesus. You mean you believe in this thing to the point that you're not going to try to fix me? You believe that Jesus can fix me from the inside out? That's exactly what I believe. In fact, I believe that this patching stuff is for the birds and doesn't have potential lasting effect. And it doesn't really matter, because what really matters, if you fix this, but you didn't really do this, then what have you really gained? Because Jesus wants the relationship. Jesus is the prize. You've heard me say that before. Jesus is the prize. So these are some thoughts that I had. This was an analogy to help you, so that when you get somebody comes to you and they got some holes up here, you're like not like all tore up, like I got to fix that. But you're like more encouraging. You say, you know what? Talk to Jesus about that. If it's important enough to him to talk to you about it and work it, you know what I mean? But for you, just point him back to Jesus. Years ago, Carol had like 7 kids. She had a bunch of kids. And it got to the point that she had these kids, and the books that were out there, and there were some good ones. Dobson had good books on stuff. They didn't cover 7 kids. They got 2. The strong-willed child, you know what I mean, how to deal with 2 kids. But when she started having so many, it was like, there's no book for that, right? Well, people would call her, and they'd say, man, I'm having trouble with this, or I need to do this. What should I do about that? And she was actually being honest as she could be, and she said, talk to Jesus. Talk to Jesus. She wasn't trying to say, she, my wife. She's not, and she didn't come today because she told me she'd already heard all my jokes, and so that's not really true. But anyway, well, she has heard all my jokes. But anyway, she wasn't saying that like that. Oh, that's such a beautiful answer. She's saying because that is the truth. There comes a point where you're not going to find it in the book. There's not, but will work no matter who you are, no matter where you live. No matter how smart you are, no matter if you don't have enough discipline that you still live under a bridge and can't brush your teeth, it doesn't matter. Jesus can talk to you. You can get it from there. And that's what Jesus wants, I believe. That's what it's about. And that's all I got. Thanks, guys. Take my bucket and leave. Huh? Oh, that's all right. That's not my job. Forward or back?